The Education Act, Section 26, Independent Schools Committee. Subsection 1. There is hereby established an Independent Schools Committee whose duties shall be A. To consider applications for registration of independent schools referred to the committee by the registrar, and B. To deal with representations made to the committee in respect of notices of complaint served under Section 27 and the disqualifications arising therefrom, and to make recommendations and give directions as the case may require to the registrar in relation to such applications and representations. Subsection 2. The provisions of the third schedule shall have effect as to the constitution of the Independent Schools Committee and otherwise in relation thereto. Subsection 27. Notices of complaints. If at any time the registrar is satisfied that any registered or provisionally registered school is objectionable upon all or any of the following grounds: A. That the school premises or any part thereof are unsuitable for use as a school. B. That the accommodation provided at the school premises is inadequate or unsuitable having regard to the number, ages, and sex of the students attending the school. C. That efficient or suitable instruction is not being provided at the school having regard to the ages and sex of the students attending the school. D. That the proprietor of the school or any teacher employed therein is not a proper person to be the proprietor of an independent school or to be a teacher in any school, as the case may be. So if the committee finds these, the registrar shall serve upon the proprietor of the school a notice of complaint stating the grounds of complaint together with full particulars of the matters complained of, and unless any of such matters are stated in the notice to be, in the opinion of the registrar, irredeemable, the notice shall specify the measures necessary, in the opinion of the registrar, to remedy the matters complained of, and shall specify the time, not being less than 6 months after the service of the notice, within which such measures are thereby required to be taken. Subsection 2. If it is alleged by any notice of complaint served under this section that any person employed as a teacher at the school is not a proper person to be a teacher in any school, that person shall be named in the notice, and the particulars contained in the notice shall specify the grounds of the allegation, and a copy of the notice shall be served upon him. Subsection 3. Every notice of complaint served under this section and every copy of such notice so served shall limit the time not being less than 1 month after the service of the notice or copy, within which representations in respect of complaints may be made to the Independent Schools Committee under the provisions of Section 28. Section 28. Determination of complaints. Subsection 1. Any person upon whom a notice of complaint or a copy of such notice is served under Section 27 may, within the time limited in that behalf by the notice, make representations in respect of the complaint to the Independent Schools Committee in the prescribed manner. Subsection 2. The Independent Schools Committee shall, as soon as may be after representations in respect of any complaints are made to it, afford all parties concerned an opportunity of being heard, and after considering such evidence as may be tendered by them or on their behalf, may direct the registrar A. So in that case, as they say, as soon as may be after representation in respect of any complaints be made to it, afford all parties concerned an opportunity of being heard. So they can have a meeting and have representatives of the school in that meeting, probably to explain or appeal. Alright, and after considering such evidence as may be tendered, so after hearing the complaints, the Independent School Committee will do any of these. A. To withdraw the complaint, but without prejudice to the duty of the registrar to serve a further complaint, notice of complaint under Section 7, if at any time he is of the opinion that, having regard to any change of circumstance, he ought to do so. B. To notify the proprietor of the school in respect of which notice of complaint was served that the school will be struck off the Register of Independent Schools on the specified date. Or C. To notify the proprietor of the school in respect of which the notice of complaint was served that the school be struck off the Register of Independent School on the specified date, unless the requirement of the notice of complaint, subject to any modifications, if any, as may be specified by the committee, are complied with to the satisfaction of the registrar before the specified date. Or D. If the school premises or any part thereof are unsuitable for use as a school, to notify the proprietor that such premises or part are disqualified from being used after the specified date. Or E. If the accommodation provided at the school premises is inadequate or unsuitable, having regard to the number, ages, and sex of the students attending the school, to notify the proprietor that the premises are disqualified from being used on and after the specified date as a school for students of such age or sex, or exceeding such number as may be specified in the notification. F. If the proprietor of the school or any teacher employed therein is not a proper person to be the proprietor of an independent school or to be a teacher in any school, as the case may be, to notify the proprietor that on or after the specified date that person is disqualified from being the proprietor of any independent school or from being a teacher in any school. Subsection 3. The Independent Schools Committee shall, in directing the registrar to notify the proprietor of an independent school of any disqualification or any intention to strike the school off the Register of Independent Schools, specify the date, which shall not be earlier than 6 weeks from the date of the direction from or on which the disqualification or striking off is to have effect, and such date shall in relation to that disqualification or striking off be the specified date for the purposes of this part. Subsection 4. Where the registrar is directed under subsection 2 to notify the proprietor of an independent school of any disqualification or any intention to strike the school off the register of independent schools, the registrar shall comply with the direction by serving forthwith upon such proprietor a notification in writing containing the particulars including the specified date given in the direction. 5. If the registrar is directed to notify the proprietor of an independent school that any person employed as a teacher at the school is disqualified from being a teacher in any school, a copy of the notification shall be served on that person. 6. Subsection 6. Where the person upon whom a notice of complaint or a copy of such notice is served under Section 27 does not, within the time limited in that behalf by the notice, make representation in respect of the complaint to the Independent Schools Committee, so they have a time limit of specify the time limit. But the time limit will be specified in the notice. So where a person upon whom a notice of complaint or a copy of such notice is served under Section 27 does not, within the time limited in that behalf by the notice, make representation in respect of the complaints to the Independent Schools Committee, the registrar shall request the committee to give him directions, and the committee may, upon consideration of such information as it may require from the registrar, give him any direction which it would have power to give, if representation in respect of the complaint had been so made. Subsection 7. Where any person is disqualified under this section either from being the proprietor of an independent school or from being a teacher in any school, then unless the Independent Schools Committee otherwise directs, that person shall be deemed to be disqualified both from being the proprietor of an independent school and from being a teacher in any school. Section 29. Appeal to the minister. Subsection 1. The registrar, or any person aggrieved by any direction of the Independent Schools Committee under Subsection 2 of Section 28 may, within 21 days after notification of that direction had been served upon him, appeal to the minister in such manner as may be prescribed. 2. At the hearing of an appeal, the minister may A. dismiss the appeal and confirm the directions of the Independent Schools Committee, or B. allow the appeal and set aside the directions of the Independent Schools Committee, or C. set aside the directions of the Independent Schools Committee and give in substitution therefore such other directions as he may think proper. Subsection 3. Where notice of appeal is duly given within the periods prescribed by subsection 1, A. the withdrawal of complaint, or B. the striking of any school off the registrar of independent schools, or C. any disqualification which would be the result of the direction in respect of which such notice of appeal is given shall await the determination or abandonment of the appeal. Enforcement. Subsection 30. Enforcement. Subsection 1. Subject to the provisions of Section 29, where a notification has been served in accordance with Section 28, the registrar shall, on the specified date, A. If the notification specified any intention to strike a school off the Registrar of Independent School, so strike off the school, unless any requirements specified in the notification were complied with to his satisfaction before the specified date. B. If the notification specified any disqualification, record in the Registrar of Schools a memorandum of that disqualification. Subsection 2. Any person who A. uses any premises for any purposes for which it is disqualified, or B. acts as the proprietor of an independent school, or accepts or endeavors to obtain employment as a teacher in any school while he is disqualified from being a teacher in any school, shall be guilty of an offense and shall be liable to summary conviction before a resident magistrate court. In the case of a first conviction, to a fine not exceeding $40, and in the case of a second conviction or second or subsequent conviction, to a fine not exceeding $100 or to such imprisonment with or without hard labor for a term not exceeding 3 months, or to both such fine and imprisonment. Subsection 3. A prosecution for an offense under this section shall not be instituted without the sanction of the Director of Public Prosecutions.